Hello guys, in this video we talk about anime movie called Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? Arrow of the Orion. It starts from the entire Artemis Familiar is killed by an unknown monster, leaving the head of the Familiar, Artemis, in complete shock. As Bel prepares himself for his dungeon excursion, his goddess Hestia awakens in a frantic manner for oversleeping. Before Bel heads off to the dungeon, Hestia wishes him good luck. Inside the dungeon, the group faces off against some hellhounds, all Mirage, and hard-armored. Later that night, the group along with Hestia attend the Holy Moon Festival. They soon have their attention caught by Hermes' challenge, which involves pulling a spear out of a crystal formation. The one who manages to pull the spear out of the crystal formation will not only be blessed by the goddess of purity, but also be invited to a grand trip around the world too. Instantly, Hestia suggests Bel take the challenge, just as Lifia suggests Ez do the same. And so, the two take the challenge together in hopes to outmatch the other. Right after Lifia tries to pull it and fails, Ez then tries, but also fails. Stepping up to the challenge, Bel tries his hand at trying to pull the spear. The moment Bel touches the spear, Bel hears a feminine voice confirming that he's the one, and the crystal holding the spear shatters. Hermes congratulates Bel for his accomplishment and introduces the sponsor of the event, Artemis. Hestia, who was best friends with Artemis back when they were in heaven, tries to embrace her old friend. However, Artemis instead embraces Bel, whom she calls her Orion. Church. Hestia chastises Artemis for her impertinence towards her and explains to everyone Artemis' goddess background. Chiming in, Hermes explains that Artemis sponsored the event to help subjugate a certain monster outside of Aurario that her familiar had trouble. Artemis then approaches Bel and gives him the spear while calling him once again Orion. Curious as to know why she keeps calling him that and why he agreed to that, Artemis tells him that the spear chose him, because of his pure soul. Intervening on the two, Hestia claims they'll accept the quest. Making everything official, Bel accepts the quest as well and kisses Artemis' hand as a way of confirmation. On the top of the wall, Hermes gives Hestia's familiar upgraded clothing for the adventure ahead. Gantler arrives with 3 tamed dragons to ride onto their destination within 10 days. Since there are only 3 dragons, the group has to ride in pairs, and much to Hestia's dismay she has to ride with Hermes. All settled atop their dragons, they ride off into the sunrise, and Hermes informs Hestia's group that their destination is the Elsa's Ruin. It's a place hidden in the great forest at the edge of the continent on the far side of Aurario. After a week of flying, the group rescues a mother and her child from a swarm of scorpions. By throwing the spear he pulled from the contest at the scorpions, Bel manages to annihilate all of them a single throw. The woman thanks them all and informs the group about how other villages aside from her and her daughters were attacked by monsters. Although complimenting Bel for the good job he did, Hermes warns him not to use the spear again in order to not attract her attention. Later the group sees the mother and child off, but give them nearly all of their food because of Artemis' naiveness. Since it's nearly nightfall, Hermes suggests they call it a night and set up camp there to remedy their food shortage. Bel finds a maize nut tree, and so they have baked maize nuts for dinner. Finished with their meal, they then discuss the matters involving the unknown scorpion monsters they encountered earlier that day. Hermes mentions that the source of the monster outbreak could be related to the quest that many familiars were assigned. However, all of them disappeared without a trace at the same destination they're heading to, the Elsa's Ruin. It was there that a monster was sealed called Antares. Although it was sealed there, over time, it managed to regain its lost power and break the seal. Because of this, Ouranos assigned Hermes the quest, and soon he meets with Artemis, whose goal was the same. Teaming up with each other, they return to Aurario to recruit more people. Although there are more qualified people to accomplish this mission, the spear is imperative in killing Antares. Noting that it's getting late, Hermes suggests they head to bed for the night. Before they retire for the night, Hestia and Artemis talk with one another. The subject of what Belle is to Hestia initially shocks her, and she struggles to give a straight answer at first until admitting he's her treasure. To Hestia's shock, Artemis can relate as she feels a sense of relief around him. When Hestia asks about where Artemis Familiar is, she answers vaguely that they're not there and are waiting for her. Embracing her friend, Hestia comments that Artemis has changed since they've last met. Outside of the tent, Hermes is seen tied to the top of a tree outside of the tent. Back in Aurario, Loki is informed by her Loki familiar Captain Finn that the guild has issued a moratorium on exiting Aurario. The following day, the group continue riding their dragons until they nearly reach their destination surrounded by a dead forest. At that moment, the sky above the group showers on them a barrage of light spears, causing them to crash land in the forest. Although no one, except one of the dragons, was injured by the ambush, Artemis suspects she was the real target. Just then, the group is surrounded by similar monsters they encountered the day before. Out of nowhere, Yu appears and casts luminous wind on the surrounding enemies, which annihilates them all. Why Yu was there is because she was requested by Hermes Familiar to help them out on their quest there. Immediately Ashfire reprimands Hermes for abandoning them all in that forest. However, Hermes tells his familiar that he did so to retrieve more people to help them on their quest. Asphyre recognizes Belle and sees that he now wields the spear. She openly admits that she wishes someone from a stronger familiar pulled the spear in the first place. That night, the group head to Hermes' familiar camp, while Hestia confronts Artemis over her actions as of late, questioning who she really is. At the camp, Hermes ropes Belle into joining him and his familiar to peep on the ladies while they bathe. Hermes' group is caught by the ladies, while Belle manages to avoid capture and catches Artemis bathing alone. The two then talk about Artemis' relationship with Hestia. Meanwhile, Hermes meets with Hestia, who has the spear and intended to discard it. Back to Artemis and Belle's conversation. Belle explains how he wants to be a hero and what kind and why he intends to be. Artemis then claims that Hestia may love Belle and confesses that although she is the goddess of virginity, she understands what her familiar once told her, that love is amazing, and then asks Belle to dance with her. Belle accepts and dances with Artemis on the lakeside. As they dance, Artemis informs Belle about the 10,000 years of romance that the gods were promised when they descended onto the earth. The following morning, Artemis elaborates on the battle tactics on the upcoming battle. Hermes' familiar will act as decoys while Artemis, accompanied by Hermes and the others, will charge into the ruins. Once that's settled with, the scorpion monsters ambush the base and the battle plan is initiated. Arriving at the ruins, they walk down a light blue illuminated tunnel and stop at a sealed gate. After Artemis opens the gate and they pass through, the group walks into a scorpion monster nest as their only exit is sealed up. They soon learn that the monsters there are not only capable of self-regeneration, but also rapid evolution as well. Wasting no time, Yu casts luminous wind on the surrounding enemies, but it's not enough as more monsters start to spawn. Meanwhile at the guild, Ina's favorite mug cracks, alluding to a bad omen of the sort. Ina and another guild member Misha then talk about how their regular Belle has been gone for a while. Just then, they notice a commotion coming in from outside and check what's going on. They're then approached by an adventurer named Maud, who submits an emergency request for first-class adventurers. The reason for it is that the monsters in the dungeon have all gone berserk and are running rampant at an alarming rate. Ina understands and proceeds to process the request. Continuing with Artemis' group in the ruins, they're chased by a swarm of monsters, to which Belle eliminates with his Firbolt spell. Drawing closing on their final destination, The group press forward as Artemis notably winces in pain. And at the destination the group confronts the great monster Antares, who astonishingly has the crystallized body of Artemis within its chest. It then fires off the purplish beam into the crescent moon-shaped scar in the sky that causes it to once again rain a barrage of light onto the periphery. This attack separates Artemis and Belle from the main group, who awaken to the sight of Artemis' dead former familiar members. It's then revealed by both Artemis and Hermes that the Artemis that they venture with is merely a fragment of the original. Since Artemis was devoured by Antares, thereby gaining her divine power to use at its disposal. In Arario the citizens look to the sky, and to their amazement there are two moons. However, Ares notes that the second moon isn't a real moon. At Freya's familiar base, Loki learns from Freya that the second moon is a magic spell called Arcanum, also known as Artemis Arrow. Although technically impossible, as if Artemis would use her god powers she would have been expelled back to heaven. Though, Freya notes the possibility that she may be being bound to that world. Elsewhere in the dungeon, the Loki familiar spearhead an offense against the rampaging monsters. Back to Hermes' group, he reveals that the spear, in reality, is an arrow created by Artemis and is powerful enough to kill even gods. The name of the arrow is Orion, which translates to "they who pierce" in the gods' language. The second moon hovering over Arario takes the appearance of a bow and arrow, points itself directly at the city. Hearing this perturbs Asphyr, as Belle has been tasked with killing Artemis, and Belle himself is disconcerted by this task. Landing near them, Antares appears before the two, and Belle tosses aside Orion and attacks Antares with his Hestia's knife. This proves futile as no damage is done to the beast and is noted effortlessly aside. Fueled with the determination from the promise he gave to Artemis, Belle manages to destroy one of its claws with his knife and a firebolt spell. Antares, however, instantly regenerates a claw and fires off the beam from its appendix with the crystallized Artemis. On the other hand, the residue Artemis negates the attack as Hermes' group heads near them until finally, she disappears. Mortified by the loss of Artemis, Belle goes into shock. Hermes' group then act as decoys to buy some time so Belle could hopefully recuperate. Belle does after hearing Hestia's plea to save Artemis while holding onto the Orion. He then takes the Orion, and empowered by his Argonaut skill, Belle kills Antares. Not yet done, Belle uses his Hestia's knife to break the crystal Artemis was entrapped in and stabs it in her heart, killing her. An apparition of Artemis appears before Belle in an alternate location and reveals to him that even gods reincarnate. How long until her reincarnation will come is ambiguous, as it could take any duration of time. She also tearfully hopes that the next time they meet, they'll have a 10,000-year romance. Back to reality, Antares' body is destroyed and the Arcanum spell is destroyed. And the entire incident is reported to Ouranos by Fels. Outside of the ruins, Hestia consoles a morose Belle by showing him that his heroic deed not only saved Artemis, but the surrounding forest as well. Taking note of that, Belle and Hestia regroup with their friends.
Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.